welcome to this year's final episode of Lincoln to Local. Today we're joined by Steve Thompson in our policy department to share with you some of Farm Bureau's biggest wins over this legislative session. Steve, this week specifically, as the legislature wound down, we saw some success with an ag sales tax exemption bill that we've been working on for a number of weeks. So can you share a little bit about the success of that bill with our members?
That's right. A very big victory earlier this week at the state capitol that has been product of a long session, really working with the tax commission and other ag stakeholders to try to come to a reasonable place for our members on renewing or obtaining for the first time the ag sales tax exemption permit. The final version of that bill passed out of the House unanimous, 96-0, after previously passing earlier last week 46-0 in the Senate. So we're very proud of the work that our whole team did on that issue. Our field reps engaged, as well as the communications division, with our members to visit with their legislators about that. And that's really what it took, was all of us sticking together throughout agriculture and Farm Bureau members from all around the state speaking out. And so that was a very important issue and really a big win and a resounding victory, so that as those issues continue to be analyzed throughout the summer, hopefully it leaves us in a good place to continue that discussion.
So ad valorem has been one of our top issues, especially earlier on in the session, and we saw a couple of good wins from Farm Bureau members as well. So can you share what those bills were and what they will do and what Farm Bureau members need to know about them?
One of the biggest issues that we deal with at the Capitol, seems like year in, year out, as everyone knows, has to do with property taxes. And one particular issue regarding municipalities we have negotiated and fought on for 5 or 6 years now. We're able to finally get that to a reasonable place earlier this session that pretty much exempted every type of agriculture activity, every type of land, equipment, operation. So we feel very good about what we've done with that, and that was able to be moved behind us. And we were able to prevent hearing a bill that would have taxed a number of our acres throughout the county. And so that issue has come up a couple of years. It might come back, but again, we've had 2 years of victories on that, and we were able to put that behind us this year without any damage. And so we're very proud of the advocacy that our members did on their behalf on those key issues. And one of those hopefully is taken care of not to come back, and the other one will be in a strong position if it does come back.
For sure. And as we all know, private property rights have been a cornerstone issue for Farm Bureau members since the beginning. But this year we saw some success on a couple of bills that will protect landowners. So can you give us some details on those?
That's right. We've worked for a number of years on all sorts of trespassing issues and have had victories in the past and really continue to find areas that we can make improvements on. And this year we walked into one of those regarding posting requirements for certain types of property, working with both the House and the Senate on that. We were able to keep that alive until we could make a change with that. And so it was a very clear victory on behalf of landowners for that, as well as nuisance lawsuits regarding agriculture and other critical infrastructure operations. We feel like that if they're, and our policy reflects that if you're operating within the bounds of the law, that you should not be able to be sued for what you're doing and what your family may have done for generations. And so that was supported broadly amongst all of the ag groups and our members around the state. So we're very excited to try to stick up for our landowner members all over the state. And it was a very good session when it comes to private property.
We all knew coming into this session that redistricting was going to be obviously a priority of the legislature, and we were excited to see some good news for rural Oklahoma. So as that kind of finished up, at least part of it this session, what do Farm Bureau members need to know about those new districts?
Well, we've been talking about the change in numbers from rural areas to urban areas and how that would be reflected every 10 years and how it changes how many folks represent us across the state. And frankly, we've been very concerned about the trend there. And what we found out from the early numbers from the census is rural Oklahoma has grown slightly, but not nearly as much as the urban areas. So the urban areas did pick up a couple of seats, but it was a much smaller change than we anticipated. And we feel really good about the work that the House and the Senate committees did on that. We had great support from them to protect a number of the rural districts, and so those have been established and approved by both the legislature and the governor. They'll come back in a special session in September to make sure when they get the final census numbers that it all holds together. And over the summer, we'll turn our attention towards congressional redistricting and work around the state at some meetings in July and August. And so we'll yet to be seen how that turns out, but we do feel like there was a great victory for rural Oklahoma with the state legislative redistricting.
Over the past couple of weeks, the legislature and the governor as well finalized the state budget agreement, and we saw a number of Farm Bureau priorities in that. So if you could explain and share some of those and that we were really excited to see.
Absolutely. As everybody knows, we work with the grassroots process that comes up from our counties to our state, and one of the things that we established working with the state board are priority issues before every session. And for a number of years, we have had funding for OSU Extension in all 77 counties, as well as broadband connectivity around the state as something that we really wanted the legislature to try to address. And honestly, we haven't seen as many victories in the past as we'd like with that. Well, both of those received some significant funding this year, so we're very proud of that. We think that will serve our members all over the state well. And some issues that weren't really on paper as our priorities, but things that our members supported, like funding for the Department of Ag for additional meat inspectors. Those kind of things were such a positive step forward, and frankly, the state was able to increase some of those funding while putting money back into the state savings account and seeing some tax cuts. So we were really tickled to death with how fortunate we were economically in the state of Oklahoma and the way the legislature invested that money.
So as the legislature adjourned this week, they're kind of finished for the year until the special session this fall. But what is Farm Bureau going to be working on going forward, and how can Farm Bureau members continue to be engaged in our policy efforts?
Well, this summer we're going to turn our attention to really a couple of the issues that we're continuing to work on throughout the session was working with the Tax Commission and our members around the state who are renewing their ag sales tax exemption to see if the changes we've made are applied in a way that we would like them to. So our members, really important for them to stay in touch with us as they renew those permits or have family members seeking new ones to make sure if there are other issues we have to work on, because we still think there's some problems on the county assessor level with that. And one of the biggest issues that's somewhat unresolved is having to do with marijuana regulation. And we've been part of a task force that was created to try to address some of those problems through the infrastructure. And that's some of the topics that the legislature talked about, but we're really not certain what kind of progress has been made there. So we're going to work with some partners on that issue. And so we want to hear our members' experience with that, and we'll be calling upon them to share that throughout the summer with us and our field reps. And then hopefully we'll have some good updates on both those whenever we go around the state for our August area meetings.
Great. Thank you, Steve, and thanks for all of your updates this year. And thank you for joining us for this last episode of Lincoln to Local.